Well, just hours after helping negotiate the ceasefire between the Israelis and Hamas, Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi declared more power for himself and said he was immune to judicial oversight. That has set off violent protests between Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood and the opposition parties. Police used tear gas in Cairo yesterday. More than 500 have been injured, and Egypt's judicial branch is joining with the opposition in protests. Both sides have announced plans for major protests in Cairo on Tuesday. CBS News correspondent Holly Williams is in Cairo this morning. Holly, what can you tell us?
Well, Bob, what we're seeing here today in central Cairo is violent clashes between anti-Morsi protesters and the police. They're really fighting running street battles in the area around Tahrir Square. So the protesters throw stones and sometimes hurl obscenities at the police. They push their way down a street, and then after a while the police fire back with tear gas canisters, or they drive an armoured car down the street, and the street is then cleared. The numbers are actually fairly small. I'd say there are between 1,000 and 2,000 protesters, and only some of them are violent. But as you said just then, both sides are planning big protests on Tuesday, and given what we're seeing, I don't think it would be surprising if we see violent clashes between the two sides. But you get the sense that Egyptian liberals and opponents of President Morsi, who are not out on the street today, are really trying to work out how they should respond and what they can do. The Egyptian Judges Club has called on judges to go on strike. We don't know what kind of an impact that's going to have. Several people have launched legal challenges to President Morsi's decree, but given that he's now said that he's immune to the courts, that may be completely irrelevant. And then yesterday we heard from Mohammed El-Baradei. He's a very prominent liberal here in Egypt, the former Director General of the IAEA. He said, first of all, that there can be no dialogue with President Morsi. That gives you a sense of how polarized things are here. He went on to say that he's sure the military is worried, and perhaps they will intervene to restore stability. Now, that's an extraordinary thing for a proponent of democracy to say, and perhaps does not bode well for Egyptian democracy. Now, both President Morsi and his supporters are saying that this is temporary, that once Egypt has a new constitution and a new parliament next year, the president will relinquish these powers. The problem is, of course, that history is littered with examples of political leaders who've given themselves special powers. They've said temporarily, and then it's ended up being anything but temporary in the end.